Installing a kitchen in a house that's 130 years old in a location of the house that never had a kitchen to begin with. Well, that ought to be interesting. Let's get into part one. Good news, the floors are finished and now it's time to build the kitchen. Now, I've got a real tight timeline on this. That's why I was pushing so hard and working the weekends to get the floor finished, because the kitchen template for the countertops is supposed to happen in 2 days. Now I've already burned like 3 hours this morning just prepping to start to build the kitchen, which is just clean out the mudroom, lay down the builder board, get some materials staged. So now I'm ready to start. What I'm going to do is, I know that the house is pitched this direction. I also know that this corner is higher than that corner. So after mulling this over quite a bit, there's only 2 ideas I can come up with in order to overtake this situation. One is to set the cabinet in the corner, lag it to the wall, and then shim out the front of it and side of it so that it is the highest point. And you always want to start with your high point in your room. Number 1 rule in setting a kitchen: start on your high point. Know where that high point is. If you don't, you will fight yourself to the nth degree getting these cabinets to set. So always start at your highest point, or at least know where your high point is so you can compensate for it. I know what I'm doing here, and so I don't like the idea of lagging it to the wall. I know what the differential is between the entire span, and I don't want to have that much of a gap at the stove. And what I mean by that is, so once we get the measurements, and I'll go through all that, is the height difference between here and the stove will be that much of a difference between the countertop and the top of the stove. So I don't want to have that much of a gap there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this cabinet down so that the face of it is normal height, but the back corner of it is smaller, which you'll never know. And then when you wrap around this corner into these cabinets, it'll be spot on. And then when it comes to doing the tapered rips and the shims and all that for the rest of the cabinets, it makes it easier, and I won't have that monster gap at the stove. So you always got to think about this as an entire project. Okay, stop gabbing, start measuring. This is a 2-foot cabinet. Standard cabinets are 2 feet deep. This one is 2 feet wide. There is where my edge of my cabinet is. And we are 1 1/8. That's an 1 1/16. So we have a 16th inch drop across the face of the cabinet. So we know that from this corner to that corner, it's a 7/16 of an inch rise. So we will cut the bottom of that cabinet from nothing to 7/16. 9/16, 1 inch. So that is 7/16 as well. Now we have the cabinet. It's nice and level, both directions, this way and that way. We're going to have the cabinet flush against the back wall. When doing that, this wall is not square to that wall, of course. So it has this big gap here. We can't leave that gap. Luckily, it's pretty even. It's just shy of 3/4 and 1 on the top and at 3/4 at the bottom. Not worth fighting for. So this is why you always buy filler strips. So I have a couple of these laying around. I go ahead, milled it 3/4, but I also did a back bevel on the side that comes in face with the wall, because we know the wall's at an angle So you don't need to know what the angle is. I just threw a 5-degree bevel on this and it's more than enough. So now this guy is going to go right in there, and then we'll be able to actually set the cabinet. So what I'm going to do now is mount this directly to the cabinet carcass, and then we'll be able to set the cabinet. For that, let's set this guy on first. I'll grab the vacuum, get this cleaned up, I'll get that cabinet set, and screw it in. There you have it. Cabinet's nice and level, and the gap is filled. So now it's moving on to the next set of cabinets, and I'll just put you on time lapse, and away we go. I'm at a good stopping point, so I think we're going to call it a day. Pretty good progress. We only have to set cabinets over here and over there tomorrow, and then get this little guy out in the middle of nowhere sorted out, and we have to build a little wall behind there. So we can put a island peninsula thing there. The good news was that the floor is relatively flat right there, and to be able to level that cabinet off of this side was pretty simple, and this guy as well. Both leveled out beautifully, just with 3/4 inch spacing underneath each one of them. So I took some cut-offs of some tongue and groove that I had laying around and put those under there, so that will be all set. And yeah, so tomorrow we'll set the rest of the bases and attach it to the building. Pretty exciting. And tomorrow is? It is not tomorrow, it is the following day. Yesterday ended up being a hard, mad dash. I was here until, I think it was 8:30 last night, so in a 13.5 hour day. So I could not take the time to do all the filming. I knew it was gonna be a hard push in order to get this place ready for templating for the countertops. And I'll show you all that here in a little bit, but for right now, we need to get these 3 cabinets set. I have about an hour, hour and a half to get this sorted out. So I need to get on that right now. Okay, so we have some out of level issues to deal with. Looks like they're both pointing down towards the center. Pretty typical. We have some fillers to make up. Okay, let's figure out where the highest point is. There she is. Plumb, level, blah, blah, blah. The key features to this little install is going to be the gap. By installing these cabinets here, I had to use universal numbers, okay? Basically, the rule is 3. So if it's divisible by 3, they pretty much make a cabinet for it as low as 12 inches, right? So I did 112 and 224s. That still left me with about 1.5 inch gap. So the fastest thing to do would be throw 1 filler strip in at one of the splits, right, against a wall. And I mean, you know me at this point, I can't do that. So I made 2 strips that were just shy of 3/4 of an inch and put them on either side of the center piece. You could also put them on either side of the edges. I just like the look. Rather, if I'm going to have a split line, I'd rather have them joined together. It's entirely up to you what you prefer to see. And by having a little more gap in the center, it makes it look a little less cluttered, having the drawers and the doors, and instead of monkeying around trying to find the blocking, I just went for the studs. It worked out really well. Right here is the beam, so I knew I had a bank of studs right here, so that was easy. You have your outlet here, so therefore you have to have a stud on either side of it. That makes that one easy. And then found that one close enough to center. And 1 screw a piece on the base cabinets is fine. It's not going anywhere. It's in a cove. It's fine. So now, we obviously made it before the template guy shows up, and I received a message saying they're not going to show up until 10 o'clock now, so that gives me an extra hour. I'm going to go ahead and clean everything up, and then I will show you the details of the kitchen. Now, when I originally designed this kitchen, I designed this section here to only be 3 inches thick or wide. And that's because I was only thinking about the cabinets and the drawers, being able to open and close them. I didn't think about how far the knobs of the range would stick out. And when you go to put a drawer in here, you pull the drawer out and it hit the knob. Can you believe that? So underneath here, or underneath the cabinets, you have what's called the toe kick area. And so when you do a cancel corner, or what do they call that? A filler corner? Anyway, basically you just take 2 filler panels, mold them together, and then you set them there. That way you get a 3-inch extension in this plane, a 3-inch extension in this plane, and you have a little corner there. But you have to build your toe kick on the inside as well to cover up that distance. Now I have seen people where they just run the toe kick into that corner and cover it up. And let me tell you, you have an open corner like that, the mice are going to turn that into a nice nest. So you want to seal that up as much as possible and, you know, have a little bit of professionalism. So I built that corner. I put the 3x3 on this corner, and then I set the stove, and I was looking at it like, oh, that's not gonna work. I put a drawer in, sure enough, it hit the stove. So I had to extend this section out an additional 3 inches. When I did that, then I had to rebuild that hotel kick area, and yada yada yada. So that's done, it's fine. The cabinet that goes to the eating space didn't have to be in the same plane as these cabinets here. I went ahead to set that one on the floor and shimmed it to the floor over there. But then that mean I had to create a space here, or an elevation there to compensate for the difference. And it was just 3/4 of an inch. So I grabbed some tongue and groove and threw that in there. And so now that planes out pretty nicely. Now we know that any sheetrock wall is gonna vary, right? So before you lag in your cabinets into the wall, you might have to do a little bit of shimming. So I'll come back and nip these off. But in order to make it nice and solid, you want to lag your cabinets to the building. I have torn kitchens out where there was nothing anywhere. It was just gravity holding the cabinets where they were. Obviously, I'm not going to do that. All right, so this is Joe. Joe came here to template for the countertops. Now, back in my day, we'd cut chunks of Luan and place them there and then form them to the wall, and then you'd staple them together and you'd take them out and you put them on the stone and cut it out from there.
Right.
But Joe and Surface Creations of Vermont have a different method of doing it, which I've never witnessed. So, Joe, would you mind telling us?
So this is our 3D laser templater. It allows us to map out essentially the drywall along the walls. So we set this out over the kitchen. The farther apart they are, the better. It's more accurate. We essentially just shoot along the wall every 3 to 5 inches or so. If you know something's going to get covered up with a big backsplash or a large pile, you don't have to be quite as accurate. But you just kind of shoot along the wall. As you do, the lines will start to pop up. But basically what it's able to do is measure from where that laser point is back to here.
Okay.
And remember where that location is in relation to the laser. So as I continue to keep shooting, it just basically connects the little points together and we map out the drywall. Then after that, you shoot the cabinetry and then you just double check. You won't be able to double check the drywall to see that, oh, it angles back at 14 degrees or anything like that.
Now, all the shooting you did earlier, does it like have an image of my kitchen right now?
Yeah. So this is the kitchen we just measured. And if I hit dimensions, all those lines pop up. What each of those tells you is the length of each of those segments. So every set of numbers is a different segment for the saw to cut. And so we'll go ahead and do a little work to that at the shop and make it less complicated.
Now, are these water jet cut or?
So we actually don't have a water jet.
Okay.
What we've got is 2 bridge saws.
Huh.
And so that's basically just a room-sized tile saw.
Okay.
The inside corner, because of the size of the blade, it'll leave material there, because otherwise it would cut through.
Yeah. So, Joe, when it comes to doing what I just did last night, setting up the kitchen and getting it all laid, I did mess up. I have an 1/8 inch hump over here. I'll fix it.
Yeah.
What are the key things to tell people to say, hey, I want to replace my kitchen, I want to do it myself? What are the things you would say are the most important for people to understand before you show up?
So the main things we need is a lot of people, for whatever reason, aren't even sure that they need the cabinets installed. But that's a big part. So those all need to be like fully fastened. I know this one, we have one loose one here. That's not as big of a deal. But we want all those cabinets fastened together. And what we want more than level is flat.
Flat.
Because we can technically do everything if it's all at an angle. I mean, you can't play marbles on it anymore.
Right.
But we need it more flat than anything.
Yep.
And then we don't want to go, our personal tolerance is 1/8 of an inch. And we just have that because we don't want over time for the support to be on those things and that to eventually fall out or something.
Right.
And yeah, the seam goes.
Right.
So that's the main reason we want it nice and flat. On top of that, there are certain stones that have more or less availability, so to speak, for overhangs. But the reason why the raised bar would need support is just that 2/3 rule.
Right.
That you want at least 66% of the material supported, that way naturally it doesn't just tip off on you at any random point. Another thing is we want support every 36 inches.
Okay. Okay, so when it comes like the air gap for the dishwasher, that's why you were fine with a 24-inch difference. Exactly. Okay, so 36. And is that true for the granite and quartz, or is it just
both?
Okay.
36, yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. And what is quartz?
So it depends who's making it and which slab and everything to get the exact.
For the slab we're putting here.
For that, so what color we got? We got copper mist from Silestone, so that is made in Spain.
Okay.
The parent company is Costantino. They also make a material called Dectin. But that is roughly 70% stone dust and 30% epoxies and dyes. So they mix those together. They have a big plant. There's actually a YouTube video you can watch, so it explains everything.
Oh, well, I'll try to find that video and I'll link it in the description.
Yeah, they've got one for their quartz as well as for their Dectin. And their Dectin is extra cool because that actually is the only material we offer that is fine to heat up. All the other stones, you can't take your pots off of the counter and put it, or off the stove rather, onto the counter. Okay. Don't damage them. The quartz, like the ones going in here, it heated up too much and there'd be like a brown color to it. And there's no way to fix that. That would also void the manufacturer's warranty if you did that. And then the granites, the reason why you don't want to do that, it's not going to change the color, but it can thermoshock it, so it might create a crack in your stone or separate it where it wasn't before.
All right, well, if any of you have any questions for Joe, you can reach out to me and I will forward them on and we can get them answered for you. Joe, thanks so much for your time. Good morning. It is now Friday. I took the afternoon yesterday and unplugged from Frankie and went and helped a friend out and helped him build a little shed roof thing. And so now we're back today and we're going to get going on the punch list for items that we need to do before the countertops get set. And that consists of fixing a little bit of a hump we have over here in a cabinet. There's a corner of the sink that is bent down and we need to flatten that back out. Sink base corners. I've already pulled those out, no big deal, it's little tabs. And that's it. Oh, we need to change this wall. Let me show you what's going on over here. So this will be the bar top, if we keep this range. Now, when I originally designed this kitchen, I designed it for an electric range, and the tops of the electric ranges are much lower. And then the customer upgraded to the gas range. Well, I wasn't really involved in that, even though I should have been. So what we're going to do is we're going to contact the appliance supplier and see if we can't trade this out. You know, I've removed all its wrappings and everything to get it set here for the templating, and so we'll see. We'll see what they say. So we can't do anything with that yet. I do want to talk about this wall a little bit though. You can see she's super solid. And that's one thing I was talking to Joe about yesterday is, you know, what does he come across when he sees this sort of scenario? And he says more times than not, people just, you know, build a little wall, nail it to the floor, and be done. Well, I mean, you guys know me at this point that I won't do that. You know, I like things to be solid, you know? Like the knee wall, or pony wall, or half wall. Whatever you want to call that thing over there. I put a video out on how to build it, and she's super solid. The sheetrockers even made comments about it. It's rock solid, right? So I want to do the same thing here, and that's what I did. Is that this stud here and this stud here go all the way down into the floor system, and I have it all boxed in under there, and it does. It just makes it super solid. And then obviously I have it tied into this wall here via this block, and all of this is all pocket holed together. Yeah, you probably can't see from over there, but, and then, you know, I have it, you know, each of the cabinets are lagged into this wall as well to make the cabinets super solid. Yeah, it's the name of the game. Make it as solid as possible. Prep for the countertops is finished. We're ready to get those things installed. So next week, that's exactly what we're gonna get into, and hang the upper cabinets, lower that little wall, and whatever other miscellaneous things. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. And if you want to see where this project began, you can check out this video over here. Or if you just want to follow along from this point forward, hit that subscribe button, and then YouTube will, you know, recommend me from this point forward. All right, thank you for stopping by High Peaks Home.